There's another planet in the solar system that they call Nibiru that was captured and moves like a comet in a 3,600-year orbit. Our own astronomers know it's out there. They call it Planet X. It has gravitational effects on the outer planets. They can't find it because it's so far out. Ancient Sumerians and what they had to say about it are correct. And what they say is that there's another planet in our solar system that was captured by our solar system as the solar system was forming.
Sumerian records indicate that they began their counting not from the sun, but from a planet on the outside of the solar system.
But most surprising was the inclusion of one more large planet as the 12th member of our solar system.
The launch of Pioneer 10 in 1972 ushers in the era of deep space exploration. The craft journeys beyond the outer known planets, sending back data that is used to seek a possible 10th planet.
14 August 1978, which was just about 6 weeks after we discovered the fact that Pluto has a satellite. Once you have a satellite for a planet, you can determine how heavy it is. It turns out Pluto is very much smaller and lighter weight than we had thought, which meant that Pluto has no influence, no appreciable influence on the motions of the planets Uranus and Neptune. At that point, we voiced the hypothesis that this means that there is at least one yet to be discovered planet in the outer reaches of the solar system.
Over the past 2 decades, physicists have joined astronomers in the search for the mysterious Planet X.
One of the things we did in 1978, having made this prediction that there was an additional planet, 10th or 12th, depending on your point of view, we sort of put our money where our mouth was, as it were, and we went out and we started looking for this thing. We've been able to refine the search area somewhat, get it rather narrowed down. We do our predictions based on the observed anomalies in Uranus and Neptune. We actually are currently looking down in the region of Centaurus, which is just south of the constellation Libra. But if it is in the kind of orbit that we describe here, it would have to be a planet that would have a mass something like 3 to 5 times the mass of the Earth. This would put it intermediate between the gaseous planets like Uranus and Neptune and the terrestrial planets that we have in the inner part of the solar system. So if this planet turns out to be in a 3,600-year orbit, then its mass will be correspondingly larger. This one here is a map of the solar system as we know it. The inner planets, this is the orbit of planet Pluto. And this here is the orbit that I have proposed for the 10th planet. And here's where we think it is right about now in its orbit.
If Planet X exists, we are not alone.
Actually not looking for a planet when I found this alignment of comet orbits. I was more interested in the origin of comets. And I just came across this alignment and couldn't explain it. And so I was eventually forced into the opinion that there is this planet out there in a most unusual position. I can only assume it's a massive body because it's perturbed all these comets. So it might be a recent arrival into the solar system. The idea of a new planet seems to fascinate absolutely everybody. But I think more than half of the emails that I've had have been about this proposed planet. I forget if it's called Nibiru or...
The theory is that there's another planet in our solar system. The ancients called it Nibiru. There's actually 54 different cultures that have names for this, not just Sumerians. Sumerians just being the oldest. And they say there's a race of beings that live on this planet that goes around our sun and goes out around another brown dwarf. You know, our solar system is binary.
Are we going to be collided with something that's hurling out of space towards us? And we can go in our last 20 minutes to what you can conclude to be the evidence for that. But I just wanted to make our guests and our listeners familiar with the theory of Planet X per se.
Thanks. I'd love to get into that.
Okay, well, we'll do that immediately we come back from this commercial break. Okay, back to Robert Siefer and a description of Planet X, please.
Yeah, there's another planet in our solar system. This planet has a 3,600-year orbit, passes by Earth every 3,600 years. all the talk of, apocalypse or some, Jesus says there's going to be earthquakes in the end times, or Edgar Casey giving predictions, or, this is the cataclysms that everyone's talking about, the Mayan cycles, the Mayan calendar. I mean, this is what we're talking about.
And you're thinking this is to occur when? Next year?